April 20th, 2017 should be a day that the small farming town of Yellowgrass, Saskatchewan remembers for its unseasonal warmth. Instead, it's a day that shatters not only the community, but the lives of countless others when 33-year-old Abby Spear is murdered.
I wanted to believe that it was a small town rumor, that somebody got something wrong. Like that can't be true.
And had I known that, we might not have sent her home. We might have gotten more help. We might have intervened earlier.
What begins as a seemingly innocent house fire slowly reveals a horrifying secret that leaves 3 children without their mother and a quiet town asking themselves how well they really know their neighbors.
I grieve those 2 weeks that I didn't have to say more things that I would have said.
Yellowgrass, Saskatchewan, a small town near the Canadian province's southeastern corner with a population that has yet to crest 500. Agriculture drives the blink or you'll miss it community, and those who call it home wouldn't have it any other way.
I'd say Yellowgrass is very much that small town kind of vibe. We're very small, we're very interconnected. Everybody knows everybody. Anybody that needs help, you know the whole community is kind of behind you and is going to pull together.
We have a large contingent of volunteers in the town, so people work really hard to make the community great. Everybody looks out for one another, and it's just a really great place to raise a family.
That's exactly what the 33-year-old Abby Spear is looking for, a warm and welcoming place to raise her family. A recent transplant to the community, Yellowgrass is quick to accept her children, and her common-law partner, Kevin Okafor, as one of their own. With Kevin working out of town, Abby often finds herself on her own looking after her young children. Balancing her own career and her family life doesn't seem to take a toll on Abby. Those who know her could always count on her quick-witted sense of humor.
Abby was one of those people that, she didn't live in the community for a really extended period of time and didn't have a strong family connection to that community, but just came in and said, I'm Abby and I want to be a part of things and I want to help out, and the community just embraced her.
She was the type of community member that digs in, that volunteers, that laughs, the last one to leave to make sure everyone's taken care of and everything's cleaned up. That feeling of belonging in a community and being part of it is how she parented, but also how she lived.
Her fearless attitude is no doubt harvested by her rural upbringing. Alongside her twin sister and 2 younger siblings, Abby spends her youth conquering the small town of Elrose, Saskatchewan.
Growing up on a farm in rural Saskatchewan, there was just tons of things to play. So we got busy playing outside, making forts, jumping on the trampoline. My one sister and I were big readers, and Abby and Joel were big into playing farm and adventure and all kinds of games. When we were small, it was easy to play together, and then we would poke fun at the differences, right? Like Abby knew how to get places, and my nose was stuck in a book.
Very capable, awesome piano player, took part in lots of 4-H activities, skating, grew up doing all of those things and was very capable of them, and maintained her social life as well. Always involved with lots of activities and stuff.
It's that same strong work ethic that drives her to study business in Calgary, Alberta, before she eventually settles down in Yellowgrass. She takes a job in the nearby town of Weyburn, about 20 minutes south, in the scheduling office for the province's Southeastern Health District. Her co-workers describe her just as her friends do, hardworking, opinionated, and hilarious.
Abby was funny, vibrant, vivacious, kind of one of those larger-than-life people that everybody really liked to be around. One of those people who kind of wouldn't take crap from anybody, but she was funny about it.
She could dish it out and she could take it. It was always a riot to spend any time with Abby. Her energy was so much fun that everybody wanted to be around her.
She attracted a crowd of people everywhere, and then particular friendships and relationships. One of the dynamics of our teenage years was that Abby would get into trouble, and then she'd tell me not to tell, or like negotiate with me on how to figure out our parents at home, right?
She was full of life and spunk from day one. So vibrant and full of energy. Hardworking, she was highly social. It got her in lots of hot water, especially in her teenage years. She didn't depend on anybody to fight her battles, and she had strong opinions. But for the most part, Abby had a huge heart.
April 20th, 2017 is a day like any other in Yellowgrass, Saskatchewan. The residents of this sleepy prairie town wake up with their alarms and tackle another beautiful spring day, be it in the fields, tending to crops, or at their office jobs in nearby communities. That day, when Abby returns home from work, she makes supper and feeds the children, then takes them out to their favorite place before bed, the park. While the kids busy themselves with their friends, Abby laughs alongside her neighbors with the same vivacious, bold Abby energy that everyone has come to love. However, little do they know, this is the last time anyone will see Abby Spear alive. With her partner out of town for his own work, all the household responsibilities fall onto Abby's shoulders. And that evening, after tucking her daughters into their beds, Abby tends to the house, preparing for another busy day, balancing her work life with her home life. But as the night wears on, a dark cloud settles over the quiet home. One that brings about the beginning of the end. One that Abby Spear never sees coming. Moments later, a neighbor out for a late-night stroll comes home to find a scene she can't quite understand, even as it unfolds in front of her very eyes. Abby's house is on fire. Soon, surrounding neighbors spill out from their homes, taking in the horrific sight before them. One neighbor calls Abby on her cell phone, but gets no response.
Maybe they're gone. Maybe they don't even know that their house is on fire yet. Or maybe she was over at the neighbor's house, just waiting with the kids or something like that. But, you don't really think that anything has happened or anything is going to happen because things like that just don't happen, right?
As the fire ravages the quaint home, and as neighbors watch, helpless to do anything, a wave of panic begins to spread amongst the rising chatter. one that brings forth a feeling of relentless dread. What if Abby and her children are inside? Yellowgrass, Saskatchewan, a bustling farm town where approximately 480 souls call home. A trip down Yellowgrass's streets showcase the ever-present pride that the townsfolk have in their community.
I think for the most part, people move into town and there's lots of things for young families to do. So whether they're joining the library or, joining baseball or hockey, there are community things happening.
It's a place where everyone knows their neighbors, where no one locks their doors, and where murders aren't supposed to happen.
Often we would see the report of a crime on the news and, most people would discount it, not really having any relationship to either of the parties. When we look at a small community, percentage-wise, the number of people that are affected by a homicide, it goes up exponentially. The number of people that know both the victim and the potential perpetrator is enormous. So the impact that has on a small community is vast.
33-year-old mother of three, Abby Spear lives in the quaint community with her 2 children and common-law partner, Kevin, who works out of town.
We didn't see Abby and Kevin together very often. Kevin worked away quite a bit, so usually it was just Abby and the kids.
Abby loves her children fiercely and will do anything to keep them safe. But on the night of April 20th, 2017, the unthinkable happens. Abby's house catches fire. Her neighbors gather outside, unsure if she and her children are still inside.
And so at that stage, we just thought of fire. And we were just kind of more worried about we hope everybody got out of the fire. We hope everybody's safe. And I can remember thinking in my head, and I'm like, okay, well, a fire's a fire. Possessions can be replaced, and we hope it's not too serious.
As confusion begins to spread across the gathering crowd, one neighbor claims to have seen the family leave only minutes before. But little do they know, the worst is yet to come. Two of Abby's neighbors, one a paramedic, the other a volunteer firefighter, decide to clear the house while waiting for emergency services to arrive.
So I know that my next door neighbor, Curtis, he's a volunteer firefighter. So I ran and I got him and I said, could you just run through the house, make sure everything's gone, no one's gonna be home. And he said, yeah, no problem,
Even with emergency services training, entering a building on fire is incredibly dangerous. At this point, nobody truly knows if Abby and her kids are home, what caused the fire, or what's in store for this small community thrown into chaos.
He went in and it was about not even 5 seconds and Curtis was back out. And said, Trish, you need to come with me. Abby needs your help. And I go, what's wrong, Curtis? He goes, no, you need to come with me. Abby needs your help.
Desperate to find their friend, Abby's neighbors enter the burning home, battling against the raging smoke and heat, risking their own lives to save hers. With visibility low, it's a struggle to navigate the home. They eventually make their way into the kitchen, and there, on the floor, their worst fears are confirmed. That's where they discover Abby. The paramedic quickly assesses her friend, but there's nothing she can do. Abby is gone.
And Curtis said, no, Trish, you need to do something. You need to help her. And so I said, well, the only way I can help her more is let's get her out of here.
The small crowd of neighbors who have gathered to watch the burning house watch in a stunned horror as Abby's lifeless body is pulled from her burning home.
One of our friends came down the street from the direction of Abby's house, and he came and said that Abby's gone. And then the bottom just dropped out.
Another first responder showed up and tried to help, but there was nothing to do. So I looked at another person that was on scene with me, and I just said to her to remember 8:34. And she asked why, and I said, I'm marking that down as time of death.
Even with this grim discovery, the town's worry quickly grows to devastating proportions as the reality of the situation kicks in. If Abby was inside, does that mean that her children are in there too?
And I said, you know what, if the girls are in the house still, it'll be a recovery.
Minutes after the fire began, emergency personnel arrive and get the flames under control. The stunned crowd holds their collective breaths as authorities enter the remains. Their only mission now is one of recovery.
And that was our biggest thing, is automatically we went to the kids and trying to confirm that they were safe, because at that point we knew Abby wasn't.
After a thorough search, emergency personnel revealed to the anxious crowd that the children are not inside, a feeling that offers both utter relief and total dismay. A neighbor gives police a photo of Abby's children to help with the search. The RCMP moved fast and put the entire province of Saskatchewan on high alert, notifying every RCMP detachment within hundreds of kilometers. Their top priority now is finding these two little girls and finding them alive. With Kevin, Abby's common-law partner, out of town on business, investigators must act quickly to find any leads while simultaneously trying to piece together the events that have rapidly unfolded.
Once it becomes known to investigators or to police in general that a person may be in danger because, a pattern has changed and they have decided this person is in fact a missing person, time is of the essence now, because the longer the period of time goes between when they were last seen and when somebody picks up the trail, that can have very dire circumstances for the outcomes. Obviously, when children are involved, the stakes become higher. They're certainly not able to fend for themselves the way an adult may. And obviously the idea of a child going missing and being in harm's way or being in danger, that affects the community.
Time stops in the small town of Yellowgrass as the community awaits the fate of two innocent children.
It was complete shock. We didn't know her family. We didn't know how to get a hold of anybody. The girls were missing, so we weren't sure where they were. And we were checking the news, and we had the TV on. And my sister-in-law, who's a paramedic, she was texting people who she knows, paramedics in Regina, and city police. Has anybody heard anything? Do you guys know anything? So we sat there and we waited and waited.
Hours pass without any updates. Everyone begins to accept that the worst has happened. Until... "11 p.m. that same night, Abby's sister, who lives an hour away in Regina, notices some commotion outside her home.
I was home with the baby on my own. Yeah, my partner had gone to hockey, and so much of it, all the way through, has felt like a dream or like a TV show. I think that's what happens when you're sort of stuck in fight or flight in a stress response.
There, Sitting on her front steps are Abby's daughters. They're cold, they're tired, but they're otherwise unharmed.
I am so grateful that Abby's kids were left in our care.
The question investigators now face is how two small children could have ended up so far away from their home, so far away from their mother, who loved them more than life itself. And what exactly transpires during the hours leading up to Abby's death? Could the fire be a result of faulty wiring in the house? Or is there something more nefarious at play? Upon the discovery that Abby Spear's two daughters are missing from their Yellow Grass, Saskatchewan home, a desperate province-wide search for the girls begins. In the only good news to come from that evening, Abby's two young girls are found an hour away from their home, dropped off on the front steps of their aunt's house. With authorities and townsfolk breathing a collective sigh of relief, the investigation now goes back to where it all began. Is Abby Spear's death an accident? Or is it a result of foul play? Authorities have to consider all options when conducting an investigation. So, could faulty wiring be to blame in the house fire that overcomes Abby Spear?
Electrical fires do happen, obviously. It could happen, by way of a malfunction of an appliance left in the home. It could be faulty wiring. But in terms of determining how the fire was set or what caused the fire, there is a very specific expertise associated with that, and fire investigators are always called in to try to determine the cause of the fire.
Did Abby have someone drop her children off for a sleepover, potentially unaware of the dangers that were brewing around her? And only when she realizes what's going on does she see that it's too late. The smoke from the growing fire overcomes her, and Abby suffocates on her kitchen floor. Or is the truth of that fateful night more devastating than anyone can imagine? What if the fire is not electrical at all? What if someone sets it intentionally? To cover up a far more heinous crime. Two of Abby's neighbors, a paramedic and a volunteer firefighter, rush the house and brave the flames. They don't believe Abby or her children are inside, but want to clear the house, just in case. However, what they find goes beyond a simple house fire. There, on her kitchen floor, is Abby's lifeless body. A pool of blood encompasses her. She's been stabbed 55 times. Faulty wiring is not to blame. Neither is arson. Abby Spear has been murdered in cold blood. Her life taken from her in the place she calls home, in the place she's meant to feel safe, in the place where she's raising her family. As the town of Yellow Grass and Abby's family grapple with the horrifying news, suspicions of who the murderer could be begin to spread. And the same person seems to be on everyone's mind.
We didn't see Abby and Kevin together very often. Kevin worked away quite a bit, so usually it was just Abby and the kids. So I didn't really have a lot of opportunity to witness the dynamic between the two of them. Sometimes in these situations where we can say in hindsight, oh yeah, I can see that, but in this situation, no idea. Had no idea.
I don't think I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe that it was a small town rumor, that somebody got something wrong. Like that can't be true. We live in a small community that's so close and so tight-knit. So at that stage, you're just in shock.
During the autopsy, the forensic pathologist performing found various degrees and depths of lacerations that Abby sustained. The cause of death was 55 stab wounds to her body and not smoke inhalation from being within the house fire.
With the children accounted for, the manhunt can now begin. Witnesses report seeing a white truck flee Abby's house only moments before the smoke is noticed. And it doesn't take investigators and friends alike to pinpoint a suspect. Kevin Okafor, Abby's common-law partner. As family and friends struggle to comprehend how Abby's common-law partner could be involved, they begin to look back on smaller, seemingly insignificant moments, only to realize that the stark, painful truth has been in front of them the entire time.
You know, in hindsight, looking at all those signs that when domestic violence isn't part of your existence, that maybe you're a little bit blind to, that certainly was a wake-up call to realize the things that people live with and the things that people go through.
There were early signs. Abby would say, Kevin has a really broken past. We don't talk about it. I've got my issues too. We just take each other where we are. And that felt uncomfortable. Like, what does that brokenness include?
Lots of questions, lots of concerns. You know, we knew that Kevin had a child from a previous relationship that he'd had no contact with. So when I would ask about that, she would say, I've got this, Mom. We'll work it out.
He would leave and then she would say, I don't know if we're together or we're not. And the on again, off again feel, right? She moved several times and would say, yeah, I'm not sure he's gonna be moving with me. And then he'd show up. And so we'd back in, like, are we supposed to be supporting him or are we supposed to be hating him? It's not clear.
I will say there was drugs and alcohol involved, and it was a very, very turbulent time. I never gave him my full trust.
Finding herself in a dire situation, Abby concocts a plan to escape. She leases an apartment and readies to move herself and her 2 daughters while her estranged partner is away for work.
So when she came on April 8th and told Mike and then subsequently told the rest of us that Kevin had hit her a few weeks prior to that, and she had asked him to leave and the relationship is over. Always kept in close contact with her with emails and texts, but really heightened that up, was checking 3 or 4 times a day to just make sure how things were going.
The last time I spoke with her, I knew she wasn't well, and I felt like I couldn't call her because Kevin was monitoring her devices and we didn't want to tip him off. And so I tried to keep the communication as normal as possible. I grieve those 2 weeks that I didn't have to say more things that I would have said.
We were making plans the day that she died, that Mike and Joel were going to go down and help her move on the Saturday, but never got a chance. Murder never entered my head. You're naive to that? I don't know. Maybe Abby did a really good job of covering that up too. I have a text from her on the Tuesday night, which was 2 nights before she died, that she says, I'm not afraid of violence. I just don't think he's ever going to leave.
I remember saying to my brother, like, I'm just terrified that he's gonna hurt her before we get there. And then we both were like, but that's not really gonna happen, right? Like, we would talk ourselves down from that ledge of fear.
We'd had 2 or 3 conversations that day. My guts were in a turmoil, And when I hung up with her the last time, that would have been between 3 and 4 in the afternoon. I left work and told them I didn't know when I'd be back, and I drove to Saskatoon, and my intention was to drive straight to Yellowgrass. I had a lot of things going through my mind, and none of them were good. I had a gut feeling this is where it was going. I stopped at home here twice between here and Battleford. I just about had to stop and be sick on the road. It was that bad.
For women in particular, they're 8 times more likely to be the victim of a homicide by their spouse or intimate partner. In general, however, 90%, if not more, homicides are committed by somebody known to the victim.
Victims, on average, will try to leave 7 times. Once they've told the perpetrator that the relationship is over is the most dangerous time for them. And had I known that, we might not have sent her home. We might have gotten more help. We might have, intervened earlier.
Kevin stabs Abby 55 times.
I think somehow, some way during that day, it was his plan. I think his plan was he was coming home to win her over, and if that didn't work, this was the next plan. I have never once doubted it was premeditated.
He then goes into the basement and starts the fire, assuming that the flames will cover up what he's done, but not before moving Abby's 2 sleeping daughters into his truck.
He apparently was supposed to be in BC. They had thought he was gone. So when he was back, then we kind of were talking like, what's happening? But we knew that it was him, like, wouldn't have been a robbery gone wrong or anything like that in our sleepy little town.
Kevin sets the fire and speeds away from the house, leaving Abby's body to burn. He drives to Abby's sister's house in Regina, where he leaves the children on the front steps unharmed. He flees, driving his truck westward. But the damage has already been done, and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police are out looking for him. And they won't stop until they find him. When Abby Spear's body is pulled from her burning home in Yellowgrass, Saskatchewan, the gathering crowd assumes the 33-year-old mother of 3 has likely passed from smoke inhalation. However, it isn't long before they make a terrifying discovery. The fire is nothing more than a distraction from the true crime. Abby has been stabbed to death. Once Abby's body is discovered, the hunt for her 2 young children begins. Thankfully, the tragedy of the evening doesn't grow worse. Her daughters are found sitting on the front steps of Abby's sister's home in Regina, about an hour away from Yellowgrass. The prime suspect for Abby's murder is quickly determined to be her partner, Kevin Okafor. Close family is aware Kevin was abusive to Abby, and she was planning to leave him while he was working out of town.
It took 3 days for the police to get positive confirmation of the body. I mean, we knew it was her. But that distance between the sort of raw knowledge and the legal knowledge was super painful. And we made the decision that Dad and Mom would go to Regina. They needed to make statements. And we stayed up most of the night just crying, just trying to make sense of what should never have to be made sense of.
Later that night, Kevin is spotted near the quiet town of Swift Current, Saskatchewan, a 3-hour drive west of Yellowgrass. Police pursue the white truck through the flatlands as a high-speed chase begins. It immediately becomes clear Kevin isn't going to turn himself in that easily.
In my experience, high-speed pursuits are some of the most dangerous aspects of policing. The officer's goal is to end the pursuit as quickly as possible. The longer a pursuit goes on, the more likely somebody is going to get hurt. Police officers are trained in multiple techniques to bring vehicles to a stop, whether it be using additional cruiser cars or using things like stop sticks or spikes that we often see in the media to deflate the tires so that the vehicle can't continue.
Several RCMP detachments work together, and authorities are able to track the murderer's movements. They know exactly which road he's on. So, in an attempt to bring the chase to an end and to bring the perp to justice, officers deploy a spike belt onto the highway. The truck speeds over the belt, instantly damaging the tires, causing it to roll onto the side of the road. There, police flank the vehicle and take an unarmed Kevin Okafor into custody. Almost 3 years after her death, the pre-trial for Abby Spears' murderer begins, with some family and friends in attendance.
It's an unbelievable emotional experience to sit in a room with someone who has killed your daughter. And he can sit there and he looks just like you and me. He looks just like he did when he sat in that chair when he used to come to my house. And yet he has pulled this horrific crime that has thrown our family into total chaos. I just like to emphasize the emotional and psychological strain of our judicial system as well. We went through numerous delays, cancellations.
The length of time that things dragged out before we had that pre-trial, it just felt like it wasn't put to bed, and it's like we couldn't really fully put Abby to rest until that was done and justice was served, because there was always that thing in the back of your mind of, what if he gets away with it?
Thankfully, some justice is found in Abby's death. Initially charged with first-degree murder, Kevin Okafor pleads guilty to second-degree murder instead, foregoing a trial altogether.
First and second-degree murder are both culpable homicide. However, first-degree murder generally has an element of premeditation or planning involved with it, whereas second-degree murder generally does not. So an accused would want to take a plea deal and plead guilty to second-degree murder instead of going to trial and potentially being convicted of first-degree murder, because while both of them carry mandatory life sentences, potentially an accused that's convicted of second-degree murder could be released on parole up to 15 years earlier than someone convicted of first-degree murder.
The judge calls the crime shocking, appalling, horrific, deplorable, and inexplicable. Kevin Obina Okafor receives life in prison with eligibility for parole in 16 years.
That guilty plea was, I think, for everybody, avoiding more trauma. I felt that we could finally find peace with the situation, and I really hope that her family could start to find some peace and some healing and start to move forward.
The particular tragedy or pain of domestic violence loss is that the threat doesn't come from outside of your family. It comes from inside. And to lose a sense that you can trust the people you love, that your internal family is a stable place, like there's a lot of loss there that was really tough.
Days after the pretrial wraps, the province of Saskatchewan enacts the Interpersonal Violence Disclosure Protocol, known as Clare's Law, which allows police to inform an individual at risk about the violent past of an intimate partner. Because of the new law, Abby's family and friends discover that Kevin has a previous domestic assault charge from 2011. Whether or not this law could have helped Abby, no one will ever know. But the fact that it exists now may save the lives of women in the same situation.
Advocating for rights of women in domestic violence and awareness to the general public for the signs and the responsibilities when you see the signs to speak up. These women, like Abby, are reaching out. They can't really say it, but it's everybody's responsibility in the workplace to recognize these signs and get involved.
The only person that could prevent Abby from dying that night was Kevin. Instead of asking why she didn't leave, we need to ask, why did Kevin do that? Kevin and Kevin alone is responsible for her death.
What are we doing as a society to stop this epidemic of men, and women in some cases, who seem not to be able to find ways to solve their problems without controlling, emotionally, physically, sexually violating their partners? It's so strange to me that there are almost no recovery programs for violators and offenders. Because as long as we talk about this as a women's issue, all we're gonna do is drag bodies out of houses.
In the midst of the heartache, the volunteers of Yellowgrass decide to do what they do best: rally a town together. They create Abby's Day, a day filled with fun activities including a slow pitch tournament, face painting, and a slip and slide. All things the 33-year-old mother and vibrant personality would have loved. They also plant a tree in her honor and unveil a special bench in a local park. All funds raised during the day are donated to her children, children who now have to live in a world without their mother to watch over them.
The impact that this had on the community was tough. It was hard, but I've never seen a community come together so much after what occurred. Right from our community club ladies putting on an event, having something called an Abby Day, planting a tree. Amazing. How we all came together and just supported each other that way was amazing.
The community keeps Abby's spirit alive in the little things it does. A neighbor purchases the plot of land where Abby's house once stood, leaving it vacant as a place for people to come and remember the free-spirited, fun-loving, hard-working woman. A woman who loved Ripple chips, fresh bed sheets, and high heels.
For Abby's memory, I guess I just want to keep her personality and her life and memories alive for her kids so that they will know what she was like and what she would have hoped for them.
Honoring her memory and legacy and taking her along with us is the only way forward for me. And I feel very lucky that we were able to recover so many of Abby's things. I wear some of her clothing almost every day. Our society needs to talk about the hard things. We need to be models of grief and sharing and of community and of taking care of one another.
Yellowgrass may be a quiet town in Saskatchewan's southeastern region, but no one who passes through, be it a local or a visitor, will ever be able to forget the name of Abby Spear and the joy she brought, not only to the community, but to those who loved her and to those who were loved by her.